Democrats skate dangerously close to insurrection. Let's check it out. All right, welcome to Rob Schmitt Tonight. On immigration, we are descending into chaos fast. We're going to show you a lot of video from Minneapolis tonight, what's happening tonight after last night when an ICE officer pulled over and attempted to arrest a Venezuelan criminal illegal in Minneapolis. The illegal took off, crashed into a parked car, then ran off on foot. That's him on the screen. When the agent caught up with him, that agent took a beating. Seeing this happen from their apartment, two other totally random Venezuelan illegals decided to leave their homes, come down, and join in, beating the officer with a shovel and a broomstick. So now it's 3-on-1. All three happen to be Venezuelan illegals. Yes, that is the beauty of living in Minneapolis, Minnesota, apparently. As he took this beating, that ICE officer pulled his gun and shot the original suspect he was chasing in the leg. So digest all of that and think about what it means. You had two random people happen to be in an apartment and see a cop arresting a man down below. And they just decide, we're going to leave our apartment and go down there and try to beat the hell out of that cop for arresting that guy. This is how lawless Minneapolis is becoming, as the state's leaders continue to push for essentially insurrection against the federal government. Push all of the citizens of that state and the city of Minneapolis to defy federal immigration laws and the people that enforce them. After such an outrageous event like what we saw last night, you would think the mayor, if he had any kind of integrity, would condemn the three men who tried to beat an officer to death with shovels and broom handles, and you'd be wrong.
We have ICE agents throughout our city and throughout our state who, along with Border Control, are creating chaos. This is not the path that we should be on right now in America. It's certainly not creating safety when a huge percentage of the shootings that have taken place so far this year in Minneapolis have been by ICE. Let's be very clear. I've seen conduct from ICE that is disgusting and is intolerable.
That was the response late last night, after three illegal aliens from Venezuela all ganged up and tried to beat the life out of an ICE agent for trying to arrest somebody, a criminal illegal alien. That's essentially tacit approval of the actions of those three on the screen right there, is what that is, from the mayor of Minneapolis. And have you heard any mainstream Democrats condemn what you just heard from Jacob Frey today? Of course not. Have you heard any Democrats condemn the three illegals who teamed up and tried to kill a cop last night by beating him to death? Of course not. That's outrageous. We are watching a slow-building insurrection against federal law in this country, federal immigration law. And it's not based on any new laws created under Trump. These laws are well established. Our immigration laws have been vigorously enforced by both parties for decades, and nobody ever questioned them until Trump started doing them, enforcing them. Democrats used to push these laws harder than Republicans. We don't have to play the sound anymore. We're just going to show the video. You know what they said. Republicans actually used to look the other way on immigration laws and kind of allow Central Americans to come in to lower wages for corporations that lobbied them. But immigration law is now obsolete in the state of Minnesota and more broadly across most of the Democrat Party, in all sanctuary states for sure. It's now fascism to enforce these laws, according to Tim Walz. Here he was on Wednesday.
Kidnapping innocent people with no warning and no due process. Let's be very, very clear. This long ago stopped being a matter of immigration enforcement. Instead, it's a campaign of organized brutality against the people of Minnesota by our own federal government. Last week, that campaign claimed the life of Renee Nicole Good.
A campaign of organized brutality. No, that's exactly the opposite, actually. You're brutalizing ICE agents, weaponizing people to do your work for you. The rhetoric is so dangerous. Kidnapping innocent people, organized brutality, blaming ICE for the death of a woman whose own father-in-law admits that she was responsible for what happened. A flailing politician An idiot is what he really is, looking to reignite his dying career after it was decimated by running his state into the ground and then being caught allowing billions of your dollars to be embezzled by Somalian refugees. Tim Walz's career is over, and he's going out with a fight. Politicians are playing a very dangerous game right now, inciting insurrection with quick little disclaimers to try and absolve themselves of what they just said. ICE is terrorizing us. ICE is dangerous. They're disappearing people. They're fascists. Take to the streets. Resist any way you can. Record everything. But do so peacefully. Nobody listens to the last part. They always whisper it anyway. If you're fighting fascism and you're facing Nazis who are disappearing people, you don't protest peacefully. You fight to the death, which is exactly what these desperate politicians are hoping their pawns are willing to do, because every violent rioter that dies in these skirmishes, and we're going to see them probably for months on ahead, every one of them that dies will improve their poll numbers. That's the honest truth. Don't think for a second that Tim Walz and Jacob Frey didn't celebrate and dance the jig when that girl was killed last week. It's exactly what they needed. Take a listen to this Minnesota state senator admitting that he believes it's fine for his constituents to use weapons against federal cops on CNN.
If there were neighbors and others who came out to help this person, that is just an example of Minnesota being a place where we help our neighbors.
If they did, in fact, have some sort of weapons to use to attack the ICE officer, would that change your opinion of whatever unfolded next?
Actually, no, right? Because from our vantage point, we wanted to make sure, and always wanted to make sure, that Minnesotans are being dealt with properly.
Nah, if they beat the cop with a shovel, that's fine. Fine by his standards. You wonder why Minneapolis is such a dump, because that's one of the guys that runs it. Last night, we saw many FBI vehicles ripped apart by rioters. Let's call it what they are. It is anarchy in Minneapolis. ICE agents being attacked. This is what you see. It's happening again tonight. We're going to get to that here in a second. This is what happens when politicians use destabilization tactics to cling to power. That's really what's happening. Democrats think they can destabilize the country and win again. The same tactic in the same city, George Floyd's Summer of Love, just before the 2020 election. Been about 5.5 years now. Trump threatening to invoke the Insurrection Act and let the military make quick work of these anti-American goons that are flooding our streets. But in truth, the reason it hasn't happened yet, because with the way the media operates in this country, if he does insurrection, if he invokes that, that is an option that will likely only help Democrats further label the president as a dictator as we move closer to the midterms. Joe Moeller is in Minneapolis tonight, joining us now. What are you seeing on the ground, Joe?
Rob, another busy day, I guess you could call it, here in Minneapolis as these demonstrations do continue. And behind me here tonight outside that federal building where we have seen these demonstrations, it continues. Take a live look here. You can see folks here in the street yelling at the agents inside of the complex here. This lady seems to be blowing a kiss, something we haven't seen too much of. Yes, the demonstrations definitely continue here today. But take a look at this video. This is from earlier as well. There were some folks out here dumping water, apparently on the concrete here to create some black ice so that these agents would trip when they come out here to make arrests. The demonstrations continue here, and also last night. We saw the demonstrations in North Minneapolis. Here's video from last night. You can see folks showed up there after that shooting took place. That illegal immigrant who DHS says was attacking the agent who was there working on the operation, and along with two others. But also, following up from that, the FBI now searching for the folks who are responsible for vandalizing that vehicle last night. They're offering a $100,000 reward. So we'll see if anybody comes forward for that. It's a big chunk of money there. Behind me here, the demonstration's continuing as the nights progress. We see these do get bigger, so we'll see how it goes here tonight on this Thursday. There's a number of demonstrations planned in the coming days, Rob, but I know later it goes. It definitely picks up.
Joe, thank you so much. We appreciate it. We'll come back if we need to. Thanks. This again, sir, good to have you. See you a lot lately. We have another ICE-involved shooting last night. Another fully justified shooting, a terrible situation that officer found himself in. We've seen yet another day of very violent protests after a very violent night last night. I just want to start by asking, do you think that is this the new norm in this country? Is this how immigration customs is going to have to handle doing a very essential job? Are they going to have to do that while also handling violent radical agitators? That's just part of the gig?
Hey, Rob, good seeing you again. Yeah, unfortunately, that's what we're having to deal with right now, right? This day in, day out, you keep seeing this, impediment, this agitation of officers and agents out there just doing their mission. And unfortunately, it's becoming the norm. But what I got to say is, you look at Minnesota where you have elected officials just ramping up this rhetoric, where you have elected officials, saying to go out there and protest ICE and to, impede us and, videotape what we're doing, instead of trying to bring down the noise themselves, instead of saying, hey, peacefully protest, but ICE is out there doing a law enforcement mission. You don't hear that. But if you go to other states, right, if you go to Texas, Nevada, you don't see that going on. And we're out there daily making the same number of arrests, getting the same criminal illegal aliens. Yet here we are in Minnesota actually arresting some of the worst of the worst. And we're having to deal with what you're seeing on the screen right there every night. And our officers being attacked.
Yeah, it's purely the result of politics. This is all some kind of a game to either cover up what's going on in Minneapolis, to try and throw the attention somewhere else. It's despicable what this is, and we're going to talk about that. You had an agent last night, attacked. A couple guys just come out of a home and just start beating him with shovels and broomsticks. And you had a state senator in Minnesota named Bobby Joe Champion go on CNN and say that he thinks that's fine, that he thinks that his constituents should be allowed. These are the three right here. Look like lovely people, right? That his constituents should be allowed to just attack federal agents with weapons. You had a state senator from Minnesota say that on CNN last night.
It's sad. I can't tell you how many times you and I have talked and everything. Just these comments that elected officials make, they're just they're unbelievable. Here you have, if you look at the whole totality of the situation, ICE officers and special agents were out making an arrest. And to be clear, we are out in Minnesota because the state of Minnesota and Governor Walz has released over 470 criminal aliens since President Trump took office back into the community. So that's what they're doing. They attempt to apprehend a subject. There's a foot chase. The agent tackles the subject, and you have individuals come out with shovels and brooms and attack that officer. It's uncalled for, and I hate to say it, but when you have elected officials like this state senator say that, it fuels this radical group that's out there attacking officers and agents. And I have to put the blame on elected officials.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we're watching the video of your vehicles being destroyed by this mob. And I think the leaders in Minnesota, Fry, Walz, Ellison, others, are walking a very thin line with their rhetoric, flirting with the incitement of insurrection, which is a word that's starting to be used. And the president is thinking about declaring this. Essentially, they call ICE a threat to the people. They say ICE is causing chaos in the community. We've had Tim Walz say that ICE is raining trauma down on the people of his state. Or they're saying it's organized brutality. They're saying ICE is kidnapping innocent people. They say all of that. But then they say that people should go out into the streets and record everything and get in their faces. But then they really quickly say, but do so peacefully. And then they just to absolve themselves of what they know is incitement of insurrection, which is exactly what they're doing. They put that up there so they don't end up in jail. They know exactly what they're doing. They're trying to cause chaos, and they're trying to hold on to immigration policies under Joe Biden that when the country lost its sovereignty for 4 years, they don't want to lose all these people that they've brought in, because those are the only people that are going to keep them in the future in a job, in a political position. How irresponsible and just how despicable it is, the way that these people act. And by the way, you try to get them to come on this show. We try to get Jacob Fry to come on this show. He's not going to come on this show.
No, and Rob, you make a great point, right? You look at what ICE is actually doing. Look what brought us out there. Kind of said it earlier. We've had 470 criminal illegal aliens released back into the community. We have another 1,360 immigration detainers that we know the state's not going to honor on violent criminal aliens. Not just your run-of-the-mill illegal alien. These are people that the state has deemed public safety threats. But we know they're not going to work with us. But look at the fraud. Everyone seems to be getting gaslit by the fact that ICE is out there, to your point, brutality, rounding people up. No, ICE and other federal partners were out there for the billions of taxpayer dollars that were stolen to fund so many criminal enterprises by illegal aliens that the state of Minnesota knew about. And that's what's being lost in this whole situation.
It's exactly right. And that these people are all frauds. It's all pure politics from some of the worst politicians in this country. And this is their Hail Mary. This is Tim Walz's Hail Mary to try and find himself in some kind of 60 years old. He's got to try to find himself a new position. He's got no money. He's got to figure out a way to survive after he loses this governor's seat. So this is what he's trying to do to be a hero in this moment. Real quick, as far as insurrection, the president posting that if these corrupt politicians don't obey the law and stop the professional agitators and insurrectionists from attacking the patriots of ICE, he's going to institute the Insurrection Act. That's a big move for him, and that's a move that I know his advisors don't want to see him have to make, because that will, of course, weaponize. I think Democrats will be able to weaponize that so effectively, because they will say, look, this is America now. You have the president, having his officers attacking, protesters and jailing them just for peaceful protests. Even though that's all BS, that's what they'll say going into the midterm. So I can tell that they really don't want to have to pull that trigger. At what point do you think they might have to?
Rob, I don't want to get ahead of the president on that, but if you look at the constant chaos we're dealing with, right, yep. And we're fortunate enough to have Secretary Noem that's given us all the tools available that we need to handle this situation. But you see night after night, we have almost 3,000 federal special agents and officers on the ground there. And we are making significant arrests, significant strides. You're going to see a lot of search warrants, a lot of criminal indictments coming down on the fraud. But we just can't have incidents like this where you have fireworks being thrown at officers, Molotov cocktails, rocks, ice, vehicles being damaged. Yeah. It's just there's a point where it has to come to a stop.
And real quick, these people, are they facing federal charges, the people that are attacking your agents? Because what I'm worried about is that in Minnesota, they're just going to let them go. Ellison doesn't want to charge these people.
No, 100%, Rob. The ones that we are arresting, Homeland Security Investigations, is working with the U.S. Attorney's Office and the FBI. We are bringing criminal charges and indictments on all these individuals.
Federal charges. Love to hear that. ICE Director Todd Lyons. Good to see you, sir. Thank you.
Good seeing you again, Rob.
All right, Joe Rubin is a former State Department official in the Obama administration, and he joins us now, and he sees all of this very differently. So we wanted to talk to him, and it's good to have you on, Joel. A 3-on-1 attack on an ICE agent last night. I want to get your reaction to that to start. What do you make of what we're seeing in Minneapolis this week?
Well, yeah, first and foremost, an attack against any of these agents should be condemned. They should not be targeted physically. The 3 individuals coming out with broomsticks and shovels should be condemned and arrested for that violence. But, look, in the big picture, Rob, what we're looking at are Americans reacting because they are deeply distressed by the number of ICE agents roaming the streets, not identifying themselves, covering up their faces, and arresting what turns out to be many American citizens. And the reaction is real. And that's why in poll after poll, we're seeing Americans turn against this policy.
I think we're seeing Americans turn against it because I think the media is doing a hell of a job on this. I mean, what is the issue with ICE enforcing immigration law? I mean, you say their faces are covered up. That's because they're being doxxed and they're worried about their kids getting shot by some psychopath. I mean, that explains that away. But they're just trying to enforce immigration law. What happened to why is that so hard for people to digest today? Democrats.
No, Rob, look, I'm with you. Immigration law should be enforced, but there is no reason that law enforcement in America should be roaming the streets, covering their faces. Our local police, our sheriff, our county police here where I live, they don't cover their faces. They identify themselves. They say their names. They provide warrants for arrest. That is all legit.
But ICE agents have a pretty big target on their back, do they not?
But that's the job, right? I mean, that's the job. They should be showing to the people who they're going to arrest who they are. And the people who are being arrested, they're being asked, for example, to provide identification. I don't have an American ID. None of us do. We don't do that in the United States. So the system is broken the way it's being done. I agree. There should never be violence against these ICE agents, though.
Here's another side of it, though. People say we've never seen tactics like this. We've also never seen 4 years of open borders and 15 million people dumped into our country. So I think when you do that, suddenly the tactics have to change, or else we're not going to get these people out of our country. And I know if you worked under Obama, Obama was a secure border guy. You know, people don't want to remember that, but he would have been called a fascist today by today's standards.
President Obama deported about 3 million people in his 8 years in office. And,
That's
you know,
a lot.
look, I worked on Capitol Hill for a while. There were talks about comprehensive immigration reform. President Trump was elected to close the border and deal with this. I get it. We all get it. But what's happening now in the interior is clearly creating chaos. It's not working with local police. The killing of Renee Good, for example, why is the state's attorney, why are they shut out of the investigation? Why is the lead U.S.
Because the
attorney
people that work in
quitting
that
the
state are
investigation?
radical left lunatics.
Even the lead federal investigator quit. He quit, and he was the guy investigating the corruption in Minnesota.
Do you think Renee Good was murdered, or do you think that she hit the gas with a cop right in front of the car?
Well, I know she was killed, and that is where I want an investigation to figure out why she was killed and go through all 360 degrees of what took place, rather than just focus on her, focus on the entirety of the situation.
Got to leave it there. Joe Rubin, good sport. Thanks for
Rob.
coming on. We appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
All right. 2 weeks after Maduro was dragged to New York, the opposition leader in Venezuela, Maria Corina Machado, gives Trump the Nobel Prize. What might that change? That's next with Trump's drug czar, Sara Carter.
Joining us is Dr. Drew from the Wellness Company with advice for dealing with seasonal colds and flu. Doctor?
Cold and flu season is here, and every year you or a loved one gets sick. Your doctor can't see you. Waiting in a crowded urgent care is brutal. This is a particularly bad cold and flu season, and it's why doctors suggest every family needs an emergency medical kit. Your medical emergency kit is filled with essential prescriptions. It includes antibiotics like generic Z-Pak to get well faster, amoxicillin for pneumonia, strep throat, ear infections, plus prescriptions for nausea and UTIs, and even ivermectin. It's easy. Just match your symptoms to the prescription in your guidebook or call the telemedicine doctor standing by. Take your medication early and feel better faster. Having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care in your home. No waiting to see a doctor, no lines at the pharmacy.
Smart advice. We've shared the website and discount code below to save viewers $45. Order now and your kit will be rushed to your door. Thank you, doctor.
My heart has experienced life-changing wins, losses, and countless miles. To keep living at my speed, I trust Cunol CoQ10. CoQ10 is the #1 cardiologist-recommended supplement for heart health. Cunol, the brand I trust.
Muscle cramps were keeping me up at night, so then I tried Slowmag, the magnesium plus calcium supplement that helps relax tense muscles so I can rest comfortably. And Slowmag tablets have a slow-release formula that's gentle on my stomach. That's why I use Slowmag.
I know the president was looking forward to this meeting, and he's was expecting it to be a good and positive discussion with Ms. Machado, who is really a remarkable and brave voice for many of the people of Venezuela.
All right, so 2 weeks after dictator Nicolas Maduro was captured by U.S. forces in that stunning raid, Venezuela's opposition leader, Maria Corina Machado, gave the president her Nobel Peace Prize today. She had a warm welcome from the White House, which currently has Maduro's vice president under its thumb. Machado's party won the last election in Venezuela handily, but Maduro just didn't leave. The election was stolen by him and he stayed in power. The socialist Delcy Rodriguez, Maduro's vice president, is the current puppet that the United States has running the country. Take a listen.
Ms. Rodriguez, the president did speak with her directly this week. As you know, he revealed that to all of you yesterday. And Secretary Rubio and the administration have been in constant communication with Ms. Rodriguez and other members of the interim government in Venezuela. They have been extremely cooperative. They have thus far met all of the demands and requests of the United States and of the president.
Okay, so there you have it. It's an interesting moment. What happens now is the question. Sara Carter is the president's drug czar and joins us now. Sara, good to see you. Is the plan to still control...
Great to see you, Rob.
Is the plan to still control Maduro's vice president until there are elections in Venezuela? And how is that going? It seems like you're getting pretty much full capitulation from Delcy Rodriguez in Venezuela.
Yes, we're definitely seeing cooperation from Delcy Rodriguez in Venezuela. I think the plan is to stabilize, as Secretary of State Marco Rubio said, is to stabilize Venezuela, to ensure stability in Venezuela. Then the process can move forward. And I think Maria Corina Machado's gesture to give the Nobel Prize to President Trump was so significant, Rob. As you stated in the opening, how does this change things? Well, I think Operation Absolute Resolve was such an incredible operation where, again, we didn't lose one U.S. service member. We made our way into Venezuela. We were able to extract a fugitive from the country. Remember, he is a de facto leader. 50 nations did not recognize him as the leader of Venezuela. So we were able to get him out. Think of the enormity of that operation. What has happened in Venezuela under the regime has been unbelievable. We have seen the loss of life in the United States like none other with drugs coming into the country. But handing the Nobel Prize over, being able to meet President Trump sends a clear message to the rest of the world and to the cartels throughout Mexico and, by the way, even the Iranian regime, that the United States and the bold, decisive actions of one of the greatest presidents in modern political history is what we are looking at right now, is changing the momentum, the geopolitical trajectory.
Any indication what Machado wants from the president? I'm sure she was somewhat disappointed that he left the vice president for Maduro in charge and power there. Any indication what she was looking for today?
You know, I have spoken with Machado in the past. I think that she has been recognized as a great leader. She is speaking out for the Venezuelan people. What she and the president said privately, I leave that up to President Trump. I know that this is vitally important to him. And as we move forward with Venezuela, I think what we're going to see is such a significant change that it's awakening the giant of the Western Hemisphere, right? We're here because,
curious to see
this is very important.
Yeah, to see what this country looks like in a matter of months. And, you know, perhaps Machado goes back in and it changes, everything changes, and you get a conservative government and everything flips. Would be amazing. I'm sure that's what the United States would like to see. I want to talk about drugs for a second. That's your wheelhouse. A major accomplishment from securing the border here. This is a really big deal. Overdose deaths falling in 2025, down 21% from the prior year. That is thousands of lives. That's a closed border. That's what it means. Not that Democrats would ever care, but that's a lot of lives saved.
Well, and the credit goes to President Trump. Look, and the decisive policies and the whole of government approach, working with our HSTFs, working with our ICE, working with Border Patrol, Kristi Noem, the secretary at DHS, everybody following through, Tom Homan. It is a whole of government approach to shut down that border. When you shut off that supply, Rob, when you shut off the supply and you choke off those points from the cartels, it causes the prices of drugs to go exceedingly high in the United States, making it impossible for some people to purchase the narcotics. We're also seeing that, and you're right, the 21% decline. Amazing. It's still too much. So we are working together to watch those numbers, and that trajectory is expected to go down, and that is what we're doing at the Office of National Drug Control Policy. It is important for me and for everyone that I work with that we reduce those deaths and that we protect the national security of the United States.
The drugs are for the president. Sara Carter, thanks so much. Good to see you.
Hey, good to see you too, Rob. Thank you.
So you saw the show last night. It looked like an attack on Iran was imminent. They closed their airspace. There was a lot of chatter. It looked like something was going to happen until it didn't. What exactly changed? That's next.
When curiosity strikes about the everyday lives of your family, we're here with answers only your ancestors can provide. See their stories at Ancestry.
Your data is like a single domino. The moment it's stolen, it starts a chain reaction that puts the information that guards your assets at risk. 1 in 3 Americans have been a victim of identity theft. Are you willing to risk it?
When I saw zeros on that screen as my bank account balance, I went to immediate panic.
$21,000 just gone. I opened my account and $30,000 is missing. Like $30,000. I have no idea what to do.
If your personal information is stolen, are you prepared to pick up the pieces alone? LifeLock is the leader in identity theft protection and restoration.
Once LifeLock got involved, everything changed.
With LifeLock, if your identity is stolen, they'll step in and fix it so you don't have to, guaranteed. Our highly trained U.S.-based restoration specialists contact institutions, dispute fraudulent charges, close compromised accounts, and even procure legal support far beyond the capabilities of your bank or credit card company.
LifeLock pursued this case
further than I ever would have imagined.
If you call right now, you'll get LifeLock for just $9.99 a month for your first year. And as extra protection, all LifeLock memberships include the $1 Million Protection Package. Our members receive reimbursement for stolen funds and personal expenses, like lost wages, as well as coverage for lawyers and experts up to $3 million in total.
When the bank refused to reimburse my stolen money, the $1 Million Protection Package came through for me.
Our Restoration Guarantee and $1 Million Protection Package are included in all memberships with no additional fees.
I think it's natural to think that you can do this on your own. You can't. You need an expert in your corner.
Call 1-800-360-9220 and use promo code TV35 or go to lifelock.com/TV35 to join today.
If you contracted COVID and you're experiencing unexplained health symptoms, they may be related to the virus or the advice provided to safeguard us. Here's Dr. Peter McCullough, medical specialist and world-leading authority on pandemic illnesses.
Countless people, and possibly you, still suffer with unexplained symptoms they didn't have before the pandemic. Studies show it may be the COVID spike protein left inside you that can harm your brain and body for years. If you experience fatigue, sleep problems, shortness of breath, headaches, lightheadedness, and more, you should consider Ultimate Spike Detox. This clinical-grade natural detoxifier may actually break down the dangerous spike protein hiding inside you, and for the first time, it's available outside of clinical settings. Ultimate Spike Detox is how you get serious about getting back to good health.
Order online in minutes and save 15%. Visit tryspikedetox.com/save15, promo code SAVE15 at tryspikedetox.com/save15.
You saw it last night on the show here. What exactly happened? It felt like there was an attack on the Iranian regime imminent. The chatter was spectacular. All the indications looked like something was going on. There was a lot of indications in the Middle East as well. And then nothing did happen. We're not sure exactly what happened. And to be honest, everything that we're seeing and reading these last couple of days could all be some kind of a psyop or disinformation designed to psych out the Iranians in some way or another, including what Trump has been saying publicly, including what he said yesterday, and media stories as well. Stories like this, the Wall Street Journal reporting that Trump was advised a large-scale strike against Iran would not guarantee a regime collapse, and as of now is monitoring how Tehran handles all these protests before deciding on the scope of a potential attack. Now, that could be the story, or we could be on the way right now to drop a bomb in 45 minutes. We don't really know. Some reports also saying Netanyahu had asked Trump to postpone plans for a military attack, indicating that maybe he needed a little bit more time to prepare for the retaliation, which would likely be aimed at his country. We're not really sure exactly what happened. We're trying to figure it out. Goldie Ghamari is a human rights activist. Walid Phares is a Newsmax foreign policy analyst. Good to have you both here. Walid, Trump said, don't kill protesters. They killed thousands. And then in the Oval Office yesterday, something that I think was kind of a ruse, which he seemed shockingly gullible, thinking that, he seems like Iran is going to stop killing these people and that everything's going to be okay, which I thought, I don't really know that that's an indication of what he's actually thinking in that moment. We thought there'd be an attack last night. There wasn't. What do you make of it, Walid?
Look, the date, the time of an attack is something that should be and is in the hands of the chief executive. He decides. And you just mentioned that if Netanyahu may have asked him, if these are the reasons to be better prepared for what the Islamic regime is going to respond with, fine. But I think the president is under the pressure of two camps. One camp that is telling him we should not attack because we cannot control the results. We should not, attack the regime because maybe some of them are saying maybe all Iranians are going to unite against us, as if the Jews in concentration camps will unite with the Nazis against the Allies. A lot of confusion there in that camp. The other camp is saying basically this is an opportunity, not just for the Iranian people to be helped, and 12,000 were killed. There is no way this regime is going to continue and manage this country. That's a big dilemma in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
So if the hesitation is about what to do to respond to them, fine. But if the hesitation is about the principle, I don't think the president will go with this.
Interesting. Goldie, your thoughts and what you think should happen here as we've watched thousands of people killed in this country that is a number one state sponsor of terror around the world and probably the worst regime, one of the worst regimes we've ever seen.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. Definitely one of the worst regimes we've ever seen. In terms of what should happen, I'm not a military strategist, so I mean, I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but I do know that no totalitarian dictatorship has ever toppled without some sort of military coup d'etat or outside assistance. And I mean, let's keep in mind that even the 1979 Islamic coup d'etat, where the communists and Islamists took over Iran back in 1979, that did not happen without the support of Jimmy Carter and the Democrats, the UK and France. So, you know, I don't know what's going to happen, but President Trump is a man of his word. President Trump is not like Barack Obama. He's not like Biden. He's not like Carter. And I know that I trust him, and I know that every single Iranian in occupied Iran, we trust him as well.
Goldie, what percentage of Iranians inside of the country are loyal to the regime, and what percentage want to see this finally end?
So about I would say 5 to 10% are loyal, and 10% is being very sort of,
that's generous.
It's being generous, right? I would say it's probably closer to 5%. But unfortunately, that 5%, they have access to the guns, they have access to the military grade weapons. And we also have to keep in mind that many of the people who support the regime are actually outside proxies.
Right.
So right now, what we're seeing in occupied Iran are Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthis, and others who are in there slaughtering Iranians.
Walid, I got 10 seconds. Do you think this regime falls in the next month, 2 months?
If we make a decision to take out the IRGC and the Basij, that will be your choice, and the Iranian population will continue the liberation on their own, free from these militias. Once those militias are down, Iran will liberate itself.
Interesting. All right. We'll leave it there. Got to leave it there, guys. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. How Democrats and the media are bending reality on immigration and ICE. That next with Rick and Ed.
Joining us is Dr. Drew from the Wellness Company with advice for dealing with seasonal colds and flu. Doctor?
Cold and flu season is here, and every year you or a loved one gets sick. Your doctor can't see you. Waiting in a crowded urgent care is brutal. This is a particularly bad cold and flu season, and it's why doctors suggest every family needs an emergency medical kit. Your medical emergency kit is filled with essential prescriptions. It includes antibiotics like generic Z-Pak to get well faster, amoxicillin for pneumonia, strep throat, ear infections, plus prescriptions for nausea and UTIs, and even ivermectin. It's easy. Just match your symptoms to the prescription in your guidebook or call the telemedicine doctor standing by. Take your medication early and feel better faster. Having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care in your home. No waiting to see a doctor, no lines at the pharmacy.
Smart advice. We've shared the website and discount code below to save viewers $45. Order now and your kit will be rushed to your door. Thank you, doctor.
Don't kibble your dog.
Oh, hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, back.
But what's wrong with this? It's premium stuff.
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means it's ultra-processed at extremely high temperatures that destroy the nutrients in the food. But at Dr. Marty, we gently freeze-dried premium meats, fruits, and vegetables, locking in their nutrients.
Never kibbled.
You got it, kid, and they're gonna love it.
I'm Guy Fieri, and I'm asking for your help in supporting the Tunnel to Towers Foundation as it continues to pay off the mortgages for fallen first responders and Gold Star families who have died in the line of duty and left behind young children. Not only that, but they are also building mortgage-free smart homes for catastrophically injured service members and have recently committed to eradicating homelessness amongst our veterans. We ask you to join us on our mission to do good. Go to T2T.org and donate today.
This is keratin debris, where nail fungus grows. Nonix Nail Gel cleans out fungus by removing keratin debris. Using Nonix, 90% of nails improve. Get clinically proven results. So effective, it's money-back guaranteed.
So, here is a before of my stomach before Sonobello, and this is after.
This year, don't just lose weight, lose stubborn fat and sagging extra skin permanently at Sonobello.
I had some loose, wiggly skin, and it is no longer there thanks to Sonobello.
Our expert surgeons use micro laser technology to safely target and remove your diet-resistant fat and tighten loose skin permanently.
I wanted the results of the tummy tuck, but not the downtime. I had a 10 out of 10 experience.
We've helped over 300,000 people transform, and we're proud to be America's #1 cosmetic surgery specialist.
In just one visit, Sono Bello got rid of my love handles and my belly fat.
You want that flat stomach? You go get that flat stomach.
Call Sono Bello. Get in there for your free consultation.
Do this for you.
Schedule your free, no obligation consultation. Our flexible payment options make it easy to get started today.
It is not, generally speaking, unruly.
The dehumanizing rhetoric of Adolf Hitler is once again alive and well.
This version of Biden is the best Biden ever.
Another shooting involving a federal officer causing chaos in Minneapolis.
Violent crashes between federal agents and protesters in Minneapolis after a federal agent shot a man during an immigration operation.
Another shooting involving federal officers.
It's like enough. You know, it's like another shooting by ICE agents in Minneapolis.
Enough from somebody that has no idea what the hell's even going on. The liberal media obsessing over ICE in Minneapolis, the perfect distraction from a career-ending fraud scandal for state politicians, of course. The death of Renee Good was a prayer answered for Tim Walz, Jacob Fry, and the like. Last night, this all escalated yet again, and they love it. An ICE officer attacked by 3 Venezuelan illegals, attacked with a shovel, opens fire to save his own life while being beaten to death. The media coverage of this, you just saw some of it. Outrageous as usual. New York Times, federal agent shoots man in Minneapolis. That's all. Washington Post, ICE agent shoots man in leg. Zero context, of course, when the context hurts their agenda. Washed up basement podcaster Don Lemon asking MAGA, is this what you voted for? Take a listen to this.
Is this what you voted for, MAGA? You idiots. How do you even sleep at night? Why would you even want this job? Is your ego and are they that small that you feel that you have to harass people in order to feel like a man? Is this what you voted for? Is this what you voted for? Maybe it is, and if you did, then you're a cruel, heartless.
When nobody's watching, you got to scream louder and louder and louder. It's like clawing for your last bits of attention, right? So Don Lemon's got to say some crazy stuff to get anybody to pay attention. But to his credit, he managed to get on this show. Legacy media has been awful on this as well, refusing to admit that the officer who shot Renee Good last week was clearly hit by her SUV. PBS put it best, that officer who appears to be knocked backwards but not hit opens fire on the vehicle. How was he knocked backwards if he wasn't hit? PBS still has not figured out a way to explain that away. DHS confirmed this week that the agent who fatally shot Renee Good last week in Minneapolis, Jonathan Ross, suffered internal bleeding to his torso after the incident, and there are medical records to prove that because he went to the hospital. CBS News actually had the scoop on that story, but somehow, even though they got the scoop that he was bleeding internally, one of the reporters still says she doesn't know if he was hit.
They said yesterday that he suffered internal bleeding. We still don't know the extent really of those injuries. And from the video, it is not clear whether or not the car made contact with him and how forceful it may have been.
That's a good point. I was walking down 3rd Avenue earlier and a car drove by and I started internally bleeding. It does happen. N2 hosts Rick Leventhal, Ed Henry join us now. Good to see you both. Rick, start with you. The coverage of this it has just been outrageous.
It's just so ridiculous and so disappointing that, like you said, Rob, there's no way someone's going to bleed internally unless they were hit. And the video evidence seemed pretty clear to me that, in fact, there was contact made, and the medical records would then prove if he's bleeding internally that's why he was bleeding internally. The media being so anti-Trump agenda, and so in the pocket of these liberal politicians who continue to encourage these kind of protests from locals who are getting in the way of ongoing enforcement operations. And then you have an agent who's forced to open fire because he was being attacked by 3 men with shovels and broom handles, and they're hitting him, and he's able to get a shot off, and they run and barricade themselves, and the story is ICE agent shoots man. Like, that's not what the story is.
It's just so it's so embarrassing for these legacy media companies that still think that they're doing some kind of journalism. Ed, I thought the PBS quote was maybe the best, that the officer was knocked backward but not hit, and then opens fire on the vehicle. So I guess the wind of the car moving forward just blew this cop backwards, and then he opens fire.
Yeah, I mean, it's hilarious in a way, the way you're mocking them. But on the other hand, it's sad because this is the basic job of a journalist, right? Collect facts. And so if you were to just deduce through normal reasoning that someone's got internal bleeding and by PBS's own account was knocked back, they would have to be hit. You do not need to be a criminal investigator. You don't need to be a district attorney to follow basic logic. But the liberals, they want to push their own political narrative. The facts be damned. And that's why these journalists, so-called journalists, and I put quote marks, should be ashamed. Just follow the facts. And that's why we talked last week about CBS News. They're not perfect, but what Barry Weiss is trying to do with this network and with the evening news program is just try to move it to the middle. Just follow some facts. It annoys the left, but just give us the facts and let the people decide. It's basic.
You can see some really funny stuff if you go to CBS on Instagram or on social media and see the comments from the lefties, because now all of a sudden CBS, people that follow CBS, are seeing a whole different side of news. They're seeing a whole different story than they've ever seen. So much news and so many facts about all the stories that we're following have been withheld from the viewers of that network, and all of a sudden now they're seeing it now, and the libs are pissed. And everyone else is like, oh, wow, this is like, you're kind of, it's like you can see it all in the comments. It's very interesting to watch. I got to leave it there, guys. Rick and Ed, good to see you both. Thanks.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
As the UK protects Islamic pedophiles, it also bans a young woman trying to call it out. Stories next in News from the Left.
I'm a martial artist, a skydiver, a pilot, and all of them require your feet to work. Get up in the morning and it felt like I was standing on marbles on my heel. When I went into the Good Feet store, the fitting was personalized. It was all about me. You put in the arch supports and your day becomes better and the sun shines, the unicorns run by, and it's a good life. I'm Randy and that's my Good Feet story.
See for yourself with a free personalized arch support fitting at the Good Feet store.
The poverty is unimaginable. There are people who are struggling, those who are hungry, forgotten Jews.
Scripture says joy can come in the morning, and you can be the reason.
If you will bless these hurting children of Israel, you will receive God's blessing in return. Your urgent gift today of $25 will help Rush, a survival food box filled with life-saving essentials.
Tens of thousands of elderly Holocaust survivors in the former Soviet Union are living in extreme poverty, hungry, and forgotten. But through the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, we can bring them hope.
Eggs. It's my favorite food. May you be blessed.
You say to them, we see you and we're here to help.
Please don't delay. Call, scan, or go online now.
Hi, Mom. I can't wait for you to hear well again, so I won't have to scream to tell you that I love you.
Now tell me if you can hear this.
Hi, Mom.
It's not just your hearing. For us, it's your life. That's why we created the Miracle Ear Way, offering unlimited care, including risk-free trials and free servicing to keep you connected with your loved ones at all times. Book a free test. Call 1-800-339-5811.
In today's uncertain economic climate, don't leave your future to chance. Earn a 10 to 12% fixed return with the safety of hard assets. Strategic metals include technology metals, rare earths, oil and gas royalties, and real estate, also eligible for IRA and 401k rollovers. For the last 35 years, we've helped investors reduce taxes and increase wealth. We can help you protect your nest egg with the safety of hard assets, steady income, no risk to your principal, 10 to 12% fixed return earnings. Call now or visit scottgengler.com.
I wish I could just watch live sports at home for a great price.
Choose and customize your channel lineup, or pause and watch for free. Sling lets you do that. Base package required.
The grind catches up with everyone, even me.
That's why I trust Cunol Ultra High Absorption Turmeric to support my joint health. It's the #1 doctor-recommended form of turmeric. It helps you keep doing the things you love at every age. Cunol, the brand I trust.
Welcome back. Time now for news from the left. The president welcoming the Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers to the White House. The team gifting the president a golden hockey stick and a jersey with the number 47 you see there, and we had a funny moment. Check it out.
Good-looking people, young, beautiful people.
I hate them. You hate standing here with all this power behind you. But I got power, too. It's called the United States military. I don't care.
Nice moment there. Next up, beautiful Dutch anti-immigration activist and influencer banned from visiting the UK after she criticized the kingdom and the prime minister over the continued importation of Islamic refugees that are just completely decimating the fabric of Europe and the UK. Eva Vlardingerbroek sharing a Home Office message online revoking her travel authorization to England, saying your presence in the UK is not considered to be conducive to the public good. And she cannot appeal, by the way. The young influencer has never committed a crime, but a nation that refuses to deport Muslim refugees that rape little British children says that there's no way that this beautiful young woman can be allowed to set foot in their country. Isn't that just exactly the story out of Europe these days? Next up, with the Supreme Court arguing over transgenders in women's sports, men in women's sports, a bunch of celebrity morons decided to make a video.
When you're young, you believe that you can do anything. And then the world tries to set limits for you.
Tell you what's allowed.
What's normal.
Who you're supposed to be.
But on the field, the track, the court, here, you get to be exactly who you are.
Because at our core, we're still the kids who just want to play. The go big game changers.
The living, breathing fabric of this country.
Supporting trans youth isn't just about sports.
It's about freedom.
On and off the field. It's more than a game.
The freedom to decimate the sporting life of young women all over the country. Yes, that's the freedom that they're talking about. And finally, after Kamala's climate-centric left-wing policies burned half of Malibu to the ground, the former vice president and her husband are moving in. Doug Emhoff just bought an $8 million mansion in exclusive Oceanside Point Dume neighborhood of Malibu, where all the Hollywood elites like to have their second homes. 4,000 square foot, 4-bedroom, 6-bathroom mansion, prime location, breathtaking ocean views. Remember how horrible it looked in Malibu and the Palisades because of the kinds of policies that Kamala and Democrats bring to that state? Enjoy, Kamala. Can men get pregnant? Up next.
So I interviewed this guy a couple of months ago on my podcast. His name is Clint Romeshay, and he was awarded the Medal of Honor for his actions in Afghanistan. His story is unbelievable. His book, Red Platoon, amazing. Now, I met Clint through my friends over at Pure Talk. Yeah, this is a commercial for Pure Talk, but relax, it'll be over in seconds, and you might even like it. As you can see, I switched to Pure Talk not long ago from Verizon, partly because I was sick of Verizon, and partly because I wanted to be on the nation's most dependable 5G network and save a whole bunch of money, but mostly because of Clint. I wanted to be in business with a wireless company who actually stands for something, and I love what Pure Talk is doing for our vets. I love the way they support America's Warrior Partnership. So to sum up, get to know Clint Romeshay on my podcast, check out his terrific book, Red Platoon, and then switch to a wireless company that actually stands for something. Pure Talk.
He's breathing. Okay, go again.
Nearly 5,000 people die from choking each year. That's frightening. I'm Dr. Ben Carson.
And I'm Arthur Lee. Well, there are ways to help prevent choking. Accidents do happen. That's why I invented the Life Pack.
Anyone can use this device, and it can save a life in seconds.
Just place, push, and pull. It's that simple. Please order one for your home, office, car, anywhere you eat.
Go to lifehack.net or call 877-543-3822.
A new year brings new threats, and Cyberman's ready for every one of them. While hackers plot their next move, Cyberman's already there, protecting families, businesses, and governments before danger can strike. This year, protect what matters most with easy-to-use award-winning protection. With PC-Matic, you get American-made protection that's faster, smarter, and stronger. Start 2026 with confidence. Visit PCMatic.com today.
People always ask, why Patriot Gold Group? With over 10,000 clients to date and over $1 billion in transactions, not a single complaint on the Better Business Bureau. Consumer Affairs top rated for 9 years in a row. Over 2,000 5-star reviews. The only company nationwide where you, the client, work directly with an owner. Home of the no fee for life IRA. Gold is up 80% in the last 28 months, 275% since Lehman Brothers collapsed. We are patriots protecting patriots. Give Patriot Gold Group a call at 888-528-4290 before it's too late. Patriot Gold Group is Consumer Affairs' top-rated gold and silver dealer 9 years in a row. Call now, 888-528-4290.
When Betty and George switched to Consumer Cellular, it saved them a lot. So they started splurging on date night. No, don't you dare. It's an acquired taste. Right now, get your second month free. Call Consumer Cellular.
Mom jeans. She passed them down to you. But who passed them to her? Let Ancestry help you piece together your story with a family history membership and detailed DNA results. Get started today at Ancestry.
So finally tonight, another wild woke moment on Capitol Hill this week. They had a doctor testifying in front of Congress that can't say whether men can get pregnant or not. Yes, that's the doctor. A real doctor would know better, but the confusion is perpetuated by a lot of the nonsense we see in our culture, woke corporations, things like that. iPhones and Androids now have pregnant male emojis. You've probably seen them. Books such as In My Dad's Belly not helping either. So today we hit the streets to ask New Yorkers whether or not men can get preggers.
Can men get pregnant?
Never. Impossible.
If science makes it possible, maybe.
Absolutely not.
No.
Yeah.
2026, but biologically, I don't think so. But don't cancel me.
The question is, are men biologically capable to have children?
Biologically, no.
Nah.
Probably no.
But there's different types of children. There's biological children, there's spiritual children.
I feel like if you don't have a uterus, you physically can't.
And with an ovaries and with the placenta and all that stuff.
I think he has to do implants.
Do you think it's appropriate for kids in school?
Yeah, why not? They should learn.
This main guy, have a baby.
That can't happen.
No.
It's like, that's the author?
It's probably a trans woman that's identifying as a guy.
I'm a gay man. I knew since I was a kid, but kids need to be protected.
That's not good content for kids.
Do the children know what transgender is and stuff like that? That this is people's choice, but it's not natural.
It's getting out of hand.
Have you got a mind? Transgender men cannot have babies. They're not designed that way.
There's an emoji that has a man that's pregnant.
Good. Well, believe what you want to believe.
Men are men and girls are girls.
Interesting comments.